Fred Rogers was more than just a kind television neighbor, he was a fighter for what was right. In 1984, when Burger King aired a commercial featuring a fake Mr. Rodney selling burgers, Fred made one phone call and the ad vanished overnight. When the KKK used a fake version of his voice to spread racist messages aimed at children, he didn't just get angry, he took legal action. But even this gentle soul had his limits. When television producers pressured him to compromise his values, Fred responded with quiet but firm defiance, choosing principle over popularity. To truly understand this man, we need to go back to the beginning. Fred Rogers was born on March 20, 1928, in Latrobe, Pennsylvania. His family was well off, his father was a successful businessman, and they lived in a large brick house filled with toys, books, and music. Yet Fred didn't feel fortunate. Health issues kept him indoors while other kids played outside. That sense of isolation, watching the world from behind a window, deeply shaped him. It gave him the emotional sensitivity that later allowed him to connect with millions of children. Suffering from asthma and often bedridden, his mother tried to comfort him with piano music and handmade puppets, but loneliness lingered. Fred gained weight and was shy in school, often keeping to himself. But he watched people closely. He learned to read emotions, joy, fear, sadness, and that quiet skill would later become the foundation of his unique way of communicating with children. When Fred was about 11, a traumatic event left a lifelong impact. Neighborhood boys taunted him as Fat Freddy, even chasing him for 11 blocks. Humiliated and breathless, Fred was scarred by the experience, but it gave him a deep sense of empathy. He later addressed bullying on his show, not as a teacher but as someone who had survived it. He showed children how to process pain, be kind, and stand up for themselves. One person who made young Fred feel truly loved was his grandfather, Fred McFeely. Every Sunday at his grandfather's farm, Fred found freedom and joy. His grandfather would often say, "Freddie, you make my day very special just by being you." Those words became a lifelong source of strength and inspired the character Mr. McFeely on his show. By the time Fred entered Latrobe High School, he was still quiet and overweight, carrying the emotional weight of past bullying. But a classmate named Jim Stum extended a hand of friendship, changing Fred's trajectory. That friendship helped Fred blossom. He joined school clubs, discovered leadership, and eventually became student council president. He lost weight, found confidence, and began to believe in himself. His personal transformation taught him the power of kindness and connection. In 1946, Fred started college at Dartmouth but transferred after a year to Rollins College in Florida, where he studied music and composed over 200 pieces. He graduated magna cum laude in 1951 with a degree in music composition. That same year, during a visit home, he saw a television for the first time. Disturbed by the lowbrow slapstick content he witnessed, he thought, "This could be something beautiful, why is it being wasted?" That moment sparked a mission. Fred moved to New York and began working behind the scenes at NBC, helping produce live shows like Your Hit Parade and The Voice of Firestone. But he soon realized commercial TV wasn't for him. He disliked the noise, the ads, and the control of sponsors. In 1953, Fred walked away from commercial television and chose a different path. He enrolled at Pittsburgh Theological Seminary while also studying child development under Dr. Margaret McFarland. Most people would pick one field, Fred pursued three: media, psychology, and spirituality. That unique combination would later define his groundbreaking show. Also in 1953, Fred joined WQED, the first community-funded educational TV station in the U.S. operating from a converted mansion with minimal staff and budget. Fred wore many hats: co-producer, puppeteer, even organist. He created a cast of puppet characters like Daniel Striped Tiger, King Friday 13, and Lady Elaine Fairchild, many inspired by real people in his life. The original show, The Children's Corner, was only meant to introduce short children's films, but Fred transformed it with full storylines and rich characters. It earned national acclaim and won the 1955 Sylvania Award for Best Locally Produced Children's Show. Still, Fred stayed humble, letting the puppets and the music speak. While juggling that work, Fred continued his seminary education, sometimes attending classes during lunch breaks, often in his studio clothes. He and co-host Josie Carey even traveled weekly to New York for live broadcasts. Fred didn't aspire to preach from a pulpit, he wanted to minister through television. In 1963, after 8 years of juggling TV and seminary, Fred was ordained as a Presbyterian minister, not to lead a church, but to serve children through the medium of television. It was a groundbreaking moment. The church recognized that his congregation was the nation's children, and his pulpit was the television camera. Every song, every puppet, every quiet moment on his show carried a message of love, acceptance, and emotional honesty. That same year, Fred traveled to Canada, where he began a 15-minute children's show called Mr. Rogers at the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, a show that would later evolve into the beloved Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, touching the lives of generations. Over the course of 337 episodes, Fred Rogers quietly transformed from a behind-the-scenes creator to an on-camera icon. Initially shy and hesitant, he was persuaded by CBC executive Fred Rainsbury to step into the spotlight for a Canadian version of his children's show. This early version became the foundation for what would evolve into Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. In Canada, he crafted his gentle tone, began speaking directly to children, and created the neighborhood of make-believe, shaping the persona the world would come to love. By the early 1970s, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood had become a staple in American households, eventually airing nearly 1,000 episodes over more than 3 decades. Every episode began the same way, Rogers walking through the door, singing his theme song, and changing into a cardigan and sneakers. This wasn't random, it was a ritual designed to make children feel comfortable and secure. The sweaters, lovingly hand-knitted by his mother until her passing in 1981, were personal symbols of warmth. While the red cardigan became iconic and was later placed in the Smithsonian, Rogers actually wore green more often. He was red-green colorblind and didn't even realize it. That simple routine signaled to children that they had entered a space where they were accepted just as they were. On May 1, 1969, Rogers appeared before the U.S. Senate, where President Nixon proposed slashing public TV funding in half. Rogers calmly and emotionally defended the value of children's programming, explaining that his show cost just $6,000 a year. He even quoted lyrics from his show to make his point. Senator John Pastor, known for being tough, was visibly moved and declared, "Looks like you just earned the $20 million." That moment not only saved PBS, it demonstrated that a gentle voice could wield enormous influence. Just 8 days later, on May 9, Rogers made another bold statement, this time on air. In episode 165, he invited Francois Clemens, a black actor playing a police officer, to share a small pool with him and soak their feet together. At a time when public pool segregation was still a divisive issue, this quiet act of kindness sent a powerful message: everyone deserves respect. Years later, Rogers privately washed Clemens's feet and thanked him for everything. That episode remains a timeless example of standing against racism with grace. As the show expanded its reach, its popularity soared. By the mid-1980s, it was reaching 1.8 million American homes with a 2.1% rating share, remarkable for a public TV program. Rogers was deeply involved in every aspect of the production. He wrote every script, created all the puppets, composed over 200 songs and 13 operas, and never used the platform to sell products. Even after the final new episode aired in 2001, reruns remained